everyone. So we have the second part of Act Two today of Macbeth, scenes 3 and 4. So it's right after Macbeth is just trying to come to terms with what he has done. He has killed Duncan. Um, right after a huge dramatic act like what had just happened in Act Two, Shakespeare normally liked to add a little bit of a break to what was going on. And a lot of times he might have something comical. He might just have something kind of out of the scheme of the actual plot of the play to break things up for the audience. And this is what he's doing with the porter. Though it's not totally comical, he's kind of very funny in a bawdy way. And Shakespearean audiences loved bawdy humor, kind of sexual humor. So what he's doing in this part of the play is called equivocation. It's a big idea in Macbeth, and it just means talking around the issue. The very first time we see that is with the witches. They give us prophecies at the beginning of the play that are kind of hard to understand. We don't really know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen. So he continues this idea with the porter at this part of the play. The porter's completely drunk. Lady Macbeth has thrown a big party in the castle to get the guards drunk. Other people took part in the party. And he hears a knocking at the gate. It's sunrise. He's just said the rooster is just crowing. He's been up the entire night. So he's making knock-knock jokes about the actual knocking on the gate to the castle. Some of the jokes that he talks about are this idea of really kind of double entendre, two different meanings. Again, this ambiguous talk. So the first thing he talks about is a farmer that hoards all his goods, but then hanged himself because the market dropped off and they were worthless. So it's kind of like, again, this idea of wanting to be rich, hoarding all this stuff, and then not getting what you want. The second joke he tells is about a man that was the best liar in the world. He lied in court, this idea of the scales of justice, right? But he wasn't good enough to lie his way into heaven. This idea, again, of the castle being welcoming. When Duncan and Banquo came, they were just saying how homey and wonderful the castle was. Now the porter talks about Beelzebub, which is the devil, opening the gates to hell. But then he talks about the castle being so cold that it couldn't possibly be hell. The last thing that he talks about, and this obviously kind of ties into what has just happened in the castle, is this idea of liquor being an equivocator. And he talks a lot about giving people desire to do something, but then takes their ability away. And he's talking in a very sexual manner right there, but it also is talking about what happened in the castle. It gave people desire to do something, but it also took something away from them, right? So this, again, is an idea to think about going into the future. They're all very unlikely events, unnatural things that took place in the castle. Right after that, we meet Macbeth for the first time. He's going to be a major player going forward in Act 3 and Act 4 of the play. He's the Thane of Fife. He is a high-ranking soldier in the Scottish army that has come to take Duncan to his next location. So Macbeth greets him. He's a little uneasy, right, because of what has just happened. And he tells Macduff to go to Duncan's room himself. He can go get him out of the room. He doesn't obviously want anything to do with that. While he's standing there, he talks to Lennox, one of the guards, and they talked about how very uncomfortable the night was. They talked about lamentings being heard in the air. It was very windy. Lamentings are sorrowful ideas, maybe prayers. So it's kind of like the wind was telling a story, right? Prophesizing with accents terrible, like someone was trying to tell them something. The earth was feverish and did shake. Again, Shakespeare is setting this tone, this mood of eeriness, of unnatural things happening, of a very, very unsettling type of atmosphere. "'Twas a rough night," Macbeth says, right? And right then, Macduff emerges from Duncan's room, and he is shaken to the core. It's a sacrilegious murder of their beloved king. Here he uses a mythological allusion when he talks about approaching the chamber and destroying our sight with a new Gorgon. Did not bid me speak, see, and then speak yourself. So he's talking about Medusa there. He's saying that if you literally looked at Duncan, you would turn to stone. It was such a horrible sight that you need to kind of look, but look away. It's like nothing he has ever seen before. So Macbeth needs to take a look. He's like, you need to go take a look at your by yourself. Go look yourself. So Macbeth goes into Duncan's chamber, and Lady Macbeth appears, acting all coy and frightened that such an event could possibly have happened in her home. Macbeth even says that she's too gentle to hear what he has to say about Duncan being dead. All of a sudden, Macbeth comes out, and after reviewing his dead body again and gives the crowd a riveting speech. He said, had I not died an hour before his chance, I had lived a blessed time, for from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys, renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. This speech is part of the plan. They had planned to come out and act really remorseful and make everyone so aware that they were so remorseful that it wouldn't look like they were guilty at all. It is also how Macbeth truly feels. When he looked at Duncan again and saw what he had done, the guilt is overwhelming. Not only is Duncan dead, but the old Macbeth is dead as well. And he knows there's no turning back. He will never be the same person again. But what did Macbeth do when he was in that room, right? Duncan's sons come in, and Macbeth explains that when he went into Macbeth's room, he ended up killing the guards. Remember, he thought that maybe they had awakened when he was killing Duncan, and he couldn't take that chance. So Macbeth is seriously mad. He thought that was so stupid. They were the only ones that might have been able to see something. Yeah, exactly right. And that's exactly why Macbeth did it, right? It starts to get really heated. They're kind of going back and forth. Macduff is not feeling okay with Macbeth, and Macbeth pretends to faint to break things up and get the attention off of her husband. So maybe the killing is not done, and that's by a long shot at this point. But going back to Malcolm and Donalbain, they fear that whoever the killer is may not be done. And they certainly are the next targets, right? They have no idea what's going on. They feel very uneasy. They say to themselves, your dearest friend could be the killer. We have no idea. Banquo, like the good soldier he is, rallies the troops and says, let's regroup, and then we'll make our plan to catch this treasonous killer. He will not stop until he is caught. Does sound a little like something Macbeth told himself earlier in his pros and cons speech. So to avoid the aim, Malcolm goes to England and Donalbain goes to Ireland without telling anyone. They're like, let's get out of here. This puts suspicion on them both and makes Malcolm look really actually kind of weak because he's the person that needs to take over. He's king now. He's next in line, right? So they leave some thinking, what's going on? No one really knows. Everything at this point seems totally unnatural. And Shakespeare wanted us as the viewers, as the audience, to feel this at the end of Act 2, right? So he has an old man and Ross speaking at the end of the act. It's been much darker out than normal, very little sunlight. Prey seems to be killing the predators. He talks about an owl killing a hawk. Then he talks about Duncan's horses, and these horses were the best trained, most beautiful. They suddenly turned wild and went completely against obedience, breaking out of their stalls. Sounds a little familiar. Sounds a little bit like Macbeth. It is happening. Macduff joins the old man and Lennox and announces that Malcolm and Donalbain have fled. Again, very unnatural behavior. Sons shouldn't leave the scene of a dad's murder, right? Because of this, Macbeth has now been named king. Act 2 ends in a very eerie manner. God's benison go with you and with those that would make good of bad and friends of foe. The middle starts with equivocation and ends the same way. So things are very unclear, things are very ambiguous, and that is how we go into Act 3.